Welcome back to Movies Explained. Today's film is a 2024 horror thriller titled In a Violent Nature. The movie begins with a group of friends exploring an abandoned fire tower when they come across a rusted old locket. Among the group, a guy named Troy takes the locket before they leave. Just then, the pole on which the locket was hung starts shaking and eventually falls to the ground. Moments later, with the sound of rustling leaves, a hand appears from under the ground. Following that, the corpse of a maniacal killer emerges slowly from the earth, covered in dirt and decay. From his appearance, the killer, who is later revealed to be Johnny, looks infuriated. He sets off through the woods, determined to retrieve the locket. He briefly stops when he comes across the corpse of a rotting fox, caught in a trap, with bees buzzing all over the decaying animal. Distracted by constant honking, Johnny hears two men arguing nearby and slowly walks toward them. Apparently, a guy named Chuck has been placing animal traps in the park, and the park ranger is confronting him about it. The park ranger claims that college kids come to the park on weekends and might get hurt by the animal traps. However, for some reason, Chuck not only lies about placing the traps, but also finds the situation amusing. He even offers the park ranger a drink at his house. As the conversation continues, Chuck tells the officer that he has no authority beyond the trees, and that he should stop bothering him, threatening to blow him off with his rifle. Meanwhile, Johnny heads towards Chuck's house and enters unnoticed through the back door, while Chuck exits through the front door. Inside, Johnny finds a necklace that he briefly mistakes for his locket, causing him to have flashbacks of his past. He remembers his father giving him the locket, claiming it belonged to his mother, and urging him to always keep it with him. Before Johnny can get his hands on the locket, Chuck returns. Assuming it's the ranger in his house, Chuck pulls out his rifle and fires on the ground. Johnny approaches Chuck and snatches the rifle from his hands. After seeing Johnny, Chuck doesn't try to challenge the psycho killer. Instead, he chooses to run away into the woods. However, he doesn't get far before he gets caught in his own bear trap. Johnny slowly approaches Chuck, who begs for mercy. Johnny brings his hand close to Chuck's face, and the scene changes to Johnny back inside Chuck's house, with bloody hands taking the necklace only to find out that it's not his. Johnny drops the necklace and walks back into the woods, where he walks past Chuck's body covered in blood and his limb on top of the old, demolished car. It becomes nighttime as Johnny walks through the forest when he hears two loud gunshots nearby, so he begins to walk toward where the noise came from. As he gets closer, Johnny notices a group of young students chilling around a campfire. While the kids are laughing and having a good time, one of them, named Aaron, tells the others that his uncle used to live nearby and had told him a gruesome and tragic origin story about Johnny. All the locals know about it, but they never talk about it. He reveals that around 70 years ago, the forest was leased out to a logging company, so people would set up shops in the camps and sell things to the loggers at exaggerated prices. Johnny's father ran these stores, and the loggers hated him. They would take out their anger on Johnny. One day, one of the drunk loggers tripped and broke his ankle on one of Johnny's toy cars, causing him to be out of work for months. Enraged, the loggers eventually decided to teach Johnny a lesson. They tricked him into climbing the fire tower by luring him with a bag of toys. Johnny eagerly climbed to the top, only to find that there were no toys. Instead, someone was hiding at the top of the tower, wearing a creepy old firefighter's mask to scare him. Poor Johnny was startled and fell from the tower, snapping his neck as soon as he hit the ground. The men panicked and put one of the firefighter's masks on him to make it look like he was playing there by himself. His death was officially ruled an accident, but his father knew that the loggers had something to do with it. When he confronted them, a fight broke out, and Johnny's father didn't make it out alive. The man who killed him claimed it was in self-defense, and no charges were filed. A week later, a few executives from the company showed up at the camp, and all the loggers were found dead, torn to pieces. After receiving a hefty donation from the company, the police paid off the widows and ruled the deaths as poisoning from tainted meat, saying a bunch of animals got in and tore up the bodies. However, one of the policemen claimed he saw a man wearing a mask watching from the woods. Some people believe he was the one who did it, while others believe it was Johnny's spirit seeking revenge. After the story ends, the group quickly takes a few pictures before heading into the cabin, unaware that Johnny is lingering around. As everyone goes inside, Johnny walks around the cabin and grabs a draw knife, hanging among other tools. Inside, Troy is being mean to his girlfriend about bringing her weird friend. Later, Aaron steps outside the cabin, planning to meet some girls at the gas station. Johnny follows Aaron into the forest and shows no mercy when he finally catches up to him. He brutally kills Aaron with a draw knife, then drags his dead body to the nearby park ranger's office. After breaking into the office, Johnny grabs a pair of hooks and walks around until his eyes lock on an old firefighter mask. He puts on the mask and walks out of the ranger's office with a hook and an axe in his hands. The next morning, two girls named Aurora and Brody seem to have taken a liking to each other. Brody is keen for a swim and jumps into the lake, while Aurora accompanies her for a little while, before leaving to do her daily yoga. Johnny, watching the girls from a distance, submerges in the water and drowns Brody, making her the first victim of the day. After killing Brody, Johnny's next target is Aurora, who is doing yoga near the edge of a cliff. As he walks toward her, Aurora, with her back turned, assumes it is her friend Brody. When she turns and sees the creepy masked man approaching, she tries to run, but is cornered at the edge of the cliff with no escape. Johnny gets closer and brutally shoves his hand through her stomach, then lodges a hook in her skull. He uses it to pull her head down through her own stomach until it is out, before throwing her mutilated body off the cliff. He calmly turns and walks back in the woods, searching for his next victims. As Johnny approaches the cabin, he finds a key ring with car keys and a toy car keychain. He sits by the side of a tree and removes his mask, revealing his creepy face for the first time. He starts playing with the toy hanging from the keychain until he hears someone getting closer and remembers he has unfinished business. Johnny crushes the toy and puts his mask on. He then walks up to the car and places a wooden log in such a way that the horn keeps blaring. This makes Troy walk up to the car while Johnny walks around the house to gather his tools. Seeing Troy standing next to the car, Johnny attacks him, but Troy manages to dodge his swing once before Johnny throws him to the ground and injures him with an axe. Just then, Evan, who must be inside the cabin, shows up with a shotgun, firing one shot and grabbing Johnny's attention. Johnny walks towards him with the axe in his hand, but before Johnny can hurt him, Evan shoots him, hitting his chest. Johnny initially falls to the ground from the gunshot, buying time for the boys to escape. Assuming he's dead, Evan rips off a piece of his shirt and wraps it around Troy's leg. The boys quickly try to escape, but unfortunately, Johnny quickly recovers and stops Evan and Troy from running away. He strikes Evan with an axe in the head, and while Troy tries to escape with an injured leg, a relentless Johnny, who won't give up on retrieving his locket, crushes his head with a rock. Right after Johnny is done killing the boys, a flashback reveals Troy putting the locket in his pocket. Without wasting any time, Johnny starts searching his pockets to find the locket. While he's still looking, Colt and Chris find Aaron's body at the ranger station and realize the extent of Johnny's massacre. They return to the cabin to get Troy and Evan, only to find out that they have also been brutally killed. Just then, a frustrated Johnny walks towards them with a hook and an axe. But things get worse when Johnny notices Chris wearing his mother's locket around her neck. Seeing this, Johnny attacks her with the axe to retrieve his prized possession. Luckily, Colt sees Johnny and warns Chris to watch out. She barely manages to dodge the axe thrown at her and escapes, driving off with Colt. After escaping from Johnny, Chris and Colt arrive at the ranger's office, pleading for his help. Seeing the locket, the ranger loses his composure and frantically asks them where they found it. Soon, Johnny also arrives at the ranger's office. When Colt tells him that they found it at the old fire tower, the ranger explains that the locket belonged to Johnny's mother, and that it's the only thing that has kept Johnny in his grave peacefully for a long time. Chris insists they will give it back to him, but the ranger believes they can't do it now that Johnny's spirit is awake and seeking revenge. Just then, they notice Johnny walking towards them. In a desperate attempt to buy some time, the ranger strikes up a conversation with Johnny and asks if he remembers him. The ranger claims he remembers Johnny and what he did 10 years ago. After getting no response, the ranger tries to fend him off with a shotgun. It works temporarily as Johnny falls to the ground. However, the ranger knows that the gunshots can't kill Johnny, but only slow him down. So, they decide to chain him and take him to the old fire tower since it's the only ground that can hold him. Colt rushes into the office to get the chains, and in the meantime, Chris asks the ranger if the story about the logging camp massacre is true. The ranger reveals that the story is mostly true because there was one survivor, his father, who somehow managed to trap Johnny once before. The ranger also claims that he never believed his father's stories until Johnny killed the people he cared about. Soon after, Colt brings the chains, and they walk up to Johnny to wrap his feet and hands. However, it doesn't take long for Johnny to recover. Just as the ranger passes the gun to Colt, Johnny quickly grabs it. The ranger decides to deal with Johnny by himself and tells Chris and Colt to leave. Johnny crushes the ranger's hands and then throws away the shotgun. With a brutal move, Johnny breaks the ranger's spine, paralyzing him. He then drags the ranger's motionless body towards a log splitter and severs his arm and head, ensuring a swift and gruesome death. After brutally killing the ranger, Johnny is down to his last two victims. Johnny walks back into the forest where Colt tries to distract and trap him, but the plan fails. Johnny finds Colt and kills him with an axe, splitting his face in two. The only survivor, Chris, watches in horror as Johnny decapitates Colt by hitting him over and over again. Seeing this, Chris makes a clever move by leaving Johnny's locket on a gas canister and fleeing into the woods. She runs for several hours paranoid that Johnny is on her tail. Although injured, she limps to a nearby road where a woman in a pickup truck gives her a lift. This helpful woman tells Chris about a dangerous bear in the forest and her brother's near-death experience with it. However, Chris is more worried about Johnny following them and urges the woman to drive away quickly. When the woman stops to bandage Chris's leg, Chris anxiously watches the woods, hoping Johnny isn't following her. The movie ends with the locket no longer where Chris left it, implying that Johnny has taken the locket and is now peacefully resting in his grave once again. Thanks for watching. Like and subscribe for more videos.